Welcome back to an Ohio X podcast. This is actually the first one where we are doing it as the Built in Ohio podcast, which we want to talk with the people that are building Ohio, building companies, building ideas, building our state, and the tech role in all of it, which is so incredibly cool. And so today's special guest is Caesar Campbell. He's an enterprise operations manager at Meta, working with their North American data center operations, and his passion is relationships, building, nurturing, and sustaining so that it brings joy, productivity, and a fruitfulness to his everyday. He's a father of three, loves snowboarding, golf, mountain biking, and he's hip hop to his core. His professional career spans 17 years, most of which have been in the infrastructure outsourcing space, building teams globally and creating partnerships worldwide. He absolutely loves the work he does at Meta, but he loves the people he does it with more. So, Caesar, thanks so much for joining us today. Welcome to the show. And I'm looking forward to talking with you. So, thanks for being here.
Chris, thank you for having me. I couldn't be more excited to spend some time with Ohio X and just dig into my background and time at Meta. So I'm grateful to be here. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, I am as well. And love meeting new people. I've met a bunch of your colleagues, but we haven't met yet. So I get to add another one from the Meta team. But to
Outstanding.
start, I loved in your bio snowboarding, golf, mountain biking. Talk us through kind of the passions of each a little
Yeah.
bit, just kind of where those came from, maybe. But then today, where are you going? A bit newer to Central Ohio, so we won't kind of dig into that quite yet. But just being in Ohio, where do you like doing those?
So I haven't been able to go snowboarding here in
Yeah.
Ohio yet, but I live up in Lewis Center, which is just north of Columbus. My family and I have enjoyed it for about almost 2 years. Was out shoveling snow this morning, as a matter of fact. But I mountain bike through the neighborhood. There's a bike park less than 5 miles from my house, right near Alum Creek. Great times there, and then golf. I'll play anywhere I can get on, Chris. There's probably at least 4 or 5 courses real close to me that I've gotten to knock around on last summer and during the fall. So Central Ohio has been phenomenal for the family and I. We get to do some cool things, and I really wanted a seasonal change, which we'll get into later
Yeah.
about the move from Texas.
All right, perfect. And I'm sure we can geek out on especially for me the golf and mountain biking too. That's kind of a
Yeah.
cycling, especially in COVID. I've gotten reintroduced to it, which has been fun. But a North American data center operations manager at Meta. So first off, let's maybe talk about Meta, which formerly went by Facebook, but now it's kind of encompassing the whole company and all the suites of products. So if you
Mhm.
could just tell us a little bit about what you do, the company does, and then also specifically what the Central Ohio and the Ohio role for Meta is, in the worldwide operations.
Yeah, I'd love to. So I'll start with myself. I'm responsible for the data centers in North America as well as the globe when it comes to process and standards. We have about 16, roughly 18, if you count the ones that are under construction here in North America. I have a team of people. They're called enterprise support technicians that provide a level of IT support that could be anything hardware, the phones, projects, initiatives in the data center space specifically. We have one here in New Albany, actually, one of the largest. Just out. Well, I already said it, just out in New Albany. Um, it houses, oh gosh, tons of compute and capacity. I don't have the actual numbers in front of me, but that was the draw for myself and Meta. And if you've talked to any of my colleagues, you probably heard the phrase "bringing the world closer together." That's Mark's definitely his objective. His one of his main goals for why Facebook. And in my bio, I talked about loving what I do. So it's really the people I get to do it with, right? So it's one thing to be able to be nerdy and make a good living doing it, but it's also another thing to do it with colleagues and people that are just absolutely fun to be around. We don't think we're doing um, we don't think we're doing microbiology or sending people to the moon. We know we're doing technology, right? So we don't get too stuck on ourselves with regards to taking ourselves too serious, making anybody walk a plank. It's just a fun environment. We strive for inclusivity. We strive for removing bias. We strive for all the things positive that our world's kind of lacking out on right now, right?
Yeah.
It's just a fun place, and I've really enjoyed it.
That's awesome. So let's back it up and um, start maybe from, and where your passion for technology came
Yeah.
from, and then we'll kind of work biographical. But were
Ooh.
you a kid that was geeking out and building computers, or was it someone who, later in life after a couple jobs, realized, oh, look at this, opportunity in technology, and you kind of dove in?
Yeah.
So where did it come from your background?
This is a part of my life that I love talking about, Chris. My dad was an operations manager for Enron many moons ago, and technology was something that was just part of the house, right? I would go to work with him. We'd be in these computer rooms. It's loud, it's noisy, it's cold. They'd be on top floors. So we had a personal computer when I was a child, like growing up. So my high school days, I took computer classes. And so for me, technology was kind of something that was just around and available to me. And I started from the very bottom. I wish I could sit here and tell you that I've got some 4-year degree from some Ivy League school, but I don't actually. I have zero degree. But I just worked hard. But I started at help desk. This is Caesar,
Hmm.
some probably 17, 18 years ago. And I've worked probably every job in between. Spent some time as a network engineer. Really loved banging around on the Cisco equipment, command line interfaces, routing and switching, and getting internet from one place to another was super cool to me. But just as I dove in, and the further I got in my career, I recognized that I could be impactful and also be fun and enjoyable. And
Hmm.
so just along the journey, I had people that gave me opportunities to advance my career. So I did trade schools, I did certifications. I just worked hard, and I don't think I worked harder than anybody next to me, but I did seize opportunities that were given to me. And so I had a friend years ago. I want to say his name. His name's Joe Russo. He worked at Microsoft for a number of years. High, powerful executive by the time he got to where we were working together. But he saw something in me, and he said, "Caesar, I'd love to see you work in this service delivery capacity." And I was like, what is that? I'm just a young black kid from Houston, Texas, that kind of fell in love with being around technology, banging around on the keyboard. But eventually, what he allowed me to do was be able to be technical, but also talk to executives, vice presidents about technology. So something goes
Hmm.
bump in the night. No executive wants to spend 45 minutes with some geeky guy nerding out about what actually went wrong. He wants to know
Right.
what went wrong, was it rectified, and will it happen again? And so
Yeah.
I had the ability to do all that and still be technical. And so I found a home in it, and I loved it. Fast forward years later, I'm leading large teams globally that are providing support in the network space, the help desk space, and it just I would have never thought this far in terms of where I'd land, and let alone Meta. Meta's only
Yeah.
been in my repertoire for the last almost 22 months, so almost 2 years. But I could not have fathomed working at such a cool place that's leading the world in social media. So
That's awesome. That's so cool,
yeah,
and, I love you mentioning your first job was, the help desk answering phone calls. For my
absolutely.
first job, not a help desk, but was also largely answering phone calls. So this is Chris, and,
Yeah,
you interact with a lot of people, and you
you
mentioned the
do.
soft skills of
Yeah.
tech, and I think,
Hmm.
those types of things, you interact with so many people from so many backgrounds and doing different things. It's not a glamorous job being that first person picking up on the first ring, but
Yeah.
it teaches you a lot, especially when you're just getting started out.
I wouldn't trade it for the world, Chris.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in us being the sum total of our choices, and I think a lot of times it gave me instant credibility because I started from the bottom,
Yep.
and it also gave me the humble beginning. So help desk is a Caesar, progressed to network. This is Caesar on on a rotation. I'll never forget. I took a call as a network engineer on Super Bowl Sunday, probably like 2011. And my boss thought it was the coolest thing that I decided to fix this network problem for a customer, logistics customer. I'll never forget it, out of the Bay Area. But I thought it wasn't a big deal. One, I'm not a tremendous football fan, but I was like, I was just doing my job. Um, but it was those kind of moments that really helped me understand that, wow, I can really be impactful in these small ways and these small intangibles, and they can
Mhm.
go a long way for me. And I just never thought it would go this far, but I absolutely love what I do and where I do
Yeah, that's really cool. And you also mentioned Houston, which,
it.
as an aside, is probably my favorite city for food and culinary because
Oh,
you get
Chris.
you get barbecue, you get Tex-Mex, you get seafood because you're by the Gulf. Like you get all the different, it's what the fourth largest city in America, so you get all the different cuisines from across the world. So I love going to Houston.
Can I just tell you right now that we just
Yeah.
instantly became best friends, Chris? One of the, I want, but and I'd be remiss if I didn't say this. My wife and I and our three children have been in Columbus now for, like I said, almost 2 years, and
Yeah.
I can't tell you that I've found a nicer community of people. People that don't look like me, they look like you, but I don't feel any sort of way. I feel loved. I feel connected. I feel warm. And it's been just a phenomenal season in my life. But I'll be honest, I miss the food out of Texas. And you hit them all. You said Tex-Mex, you said barbecue. I've been able to find a few barbecue places around
Yeah,
that'll get me
it's
by. But there's no Tex-Mex here, and it's
I know.
killing me. I got to be
I
honest, it's
know.
killing me.
Yeah.
But yeah, so good call on that. Wow, we're best
Yeah.
friends now, Chris, bud.
Yeah, I know. Well, we'll have to, we'll have to when things, nicer weather and all of that, we'll have
Yeah,
to figure out some barbecues places to stop by and talk
I'd
shop.
love
But,
to. Love to.
but, yeah, I could, as I'm geeking out on barbecue and Tex-Mex now, I'm really, really losing my train of
I'm
thought. But
sorry. I'm sorry.
no, 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 that's perfect. Well, let's get back to kind of your career path because
Sure.
before, you've mentioned a couple times you've now been in Columbus, Central Ohio, working at Meta
Hmm.
for about 22 months, almost 2 years. Um, Houston to Austin, I believe, and maybe there were some kind of stops, but let's go to Austin
Yeah.
in terms of your tech career because Austin is another city that isn't Silicon Valley, isn't Seattle, isn't New
Yes.
York,
Hmm.
but in the past 10 or 15 years, whatever it is, I haven't lived there. I've just visited. It's seen
Hmm.
this explosive growth. And especially for Columbus, where we are, there's a lot of similarities of state government, the largest state
Tremendous.
university. And then now we're starting to see a lot of this kind of the tech sector being grown up
Hmm.
here.
Hmm.
But in
Hmm.
Austin, it's been massive.
Yeah. Um, Shout out to Austin. I'm hoping that we get some Tex-Mex here along with the technology.
Yep.
But Austin was a great stop. I did move from, I did the Texas Triangle, by the way. Born and raised in Houston. Started my career as a young adult in Dallas. Worked about, oh gosh, 10, 12 years there, and then came to Austin. Austin, I worked for an outsourcing company called HCL. I was responsible for a global customer, a semiconductor customer. So you've heard of Intel. You may have heard of AMD was my
It's been in
customer.
the news.
Yeah, yeah, because they're coming here. Well,
Yep.
AMD was my customer for a number of years. AMD, free scale. So really got to work on some cutting edge things, right? All the chips that go in our cars, manufacturing. That gave me a different side of tech in that it was really time bound. So outages in their networks and in their systems was just money going out the window. So lots of knee jerk reactions, lots of 5 9 discussion, always some kind of contingency plan for if something went bump in the night. But the Austin career was phenomenal. What it added to my career, I think, is the ability to really be responsive, think on my feet, and be able to solve problems, complex problems, at a rapid clip.
That's awesome. So
Yeah,
what was the kind of catalyst for moving to Ohio, this new career opportunity? And I'm guessing
yeah,
Meta was a new job and it wasn't, transferred
yeah.
from one spot to the other. Maybe I'm wrong, but what was it about
Uh,
Ohio that
yeah.
brought you here?
Twofold. My bride, love my wife
Okay.
and my family. They're great. Shout out Kate Campbell. She's from Wisconsin. And I
Okay.
started when we were dating back in 2011, 12, 13, 14. We started to visit her family, and I kind of fell in love with the Midwest, right? It's sprawling hills, it's green grass, but more importantly, Chris, it's 75, 80s in the summer. So that means lots
Mhm.
of golf. I've got lots of cool brother-in-laws that play golf with me. My father-in-law, I beat him a lot, but he won't hear this, I'm sure. Um, but that was the drive, and I started thinking, I'm working in tech, I'm in Austin. The majority of my career is at this point, I travel once or twice a month. I'm not really in an office leading a
Mhm.
global team, so I could do it anywhere. And I started thinking, why wouldn't we move somewhere that's more conducive to our current lifestyle, which is a lot of outdoor activity. We've got littles at the time, and so I was open to a relocation. Fast forward, I get a LinkedIn request from a recruiter at Meta, then Facebook, and I thought that was a complete joke because when I thought Facebook, just being honest, I thought Ivy League, I thought white, I
Mhm.
thought young. I did not think middle-aged African American, no college, and so to my amaze, I'm so glad I treated the opportunity as serious as it was because not only has Facebook impacted my life in a tremendous and a positive way, but I've gotten an opportunity to tell more people about it, my connected network of friends and family, and then also do things like this podcast, right, where I'm talking about my experience just as a man, and then also as a man in tech, and then also as a man in tech at one of the most prominent
Yeah.
places on our social media platforms.
Yeah, and I love that because I think in a lot of ways the pandemic has kind of helped that where people have
Hmm.
seen the remote work and the digitalness of our
Yeah.
workforce and people leaving the big coastal hubs, but definitely before where it was like, well, you got to be in Silicon Valley, and you kind of just the stereotypes of like you have to have that
Hmm.
coding degree from computer
Hmm.
science from Harvard or Stanford or whatever it is. And if you're not
Exactly.
there,
Yes.
it doesn't really count. And that's just not the case. And, it's so cool to see, Austin and places like that have kind of, broken that norm. But even
Hmm.
today, this movement and companies like yours, Meta, placing big bets, employing Ohioans, and, vital and integral to the global operations that you all do, which is really, really, really cool. So that's a fantastic
Absolutely.
story. Walk us through as kind of our last question before we get to our kind of our rapid fire part of the
Okay.
the show. What is a typical day at Meta like for you? And that can, I'm
Yeah.
sure, mean a million different things. So you can walk us through
Yeah.
just one example. But what is it like at Meta? And you mentioned the teams and globally, and just the people that you really love and enjoy doing it with. So what's a day like for you?
I'll talk about today in particular because it's
Yeah.
Friday. This morning, I got a chance to meet with a colleague in Brazil, and we were talking about. I've got a couple of openings in New Mexico and one in Texas, and someone reached out to me of there was interested, and so they were at a certain level, and they wanted to know if I would consider their role, and so that was really cool. A colleague in Brazil is such a nice guy. His name's Robalo. We got to kind of talk about COVID, talked about family, everything about that we do internal to Meta has a huge community component. So while we eventually get to business and communicating about the needs and whatever process or gap we're trying to fill, it's always met or ended with how are you doing? How's your
Mhm.
family doing? What's going on in your city, right? In our current climate. The rest of the day, I was actually working on. I was talking to one of my team members, and he was asking about, in particular, what's it going to look like when we go back to the office season? I said, well, we're going to be able to mine for new business. We're going to be as helpful as we can. We're going to kind of have to reinvent ourselves a little bit and be more imaginative about what the future holds for complex problems and driving projects in an office space that may not be filled like it was pre-COVID. Um, my day can vary. We just wrapped up our appraisal cycle where we're meeting for days and hours on end about calibrations and how we promote people and get them to the next level, reviewing their bodies of work from the previous half. It's just tremendous. And then there are days when I have community engagements. We're embarking upon Black History Month.
Mhm.
I hopefully get to do a lot of speaking engagements where I talk about what you and I are talking about, just
Yeah.
my journey in technology, because I think it's unique, right? It didn't start with Stanford, Ivy League, started with Help Desk at Caesar, and still here I am today. And I love talking about that because so many of our youth don't understand that you can start a tech career absolutely anywhere.
Yeah.
And there's so many other jobs other than coding network engineering, building software. There's just so many ancillary opportunities that people have that we don't often share. And so that's one of my goals for myself is to always talk about and give back to the community and share the other possible ways and routes that you can get to technology.
Yeah, I love that. That's incredible. We'll go now to the kind of the last part of the show where we do 4 questions. We ask all of our guests, and it's cool to see different backgrounds from
Mhm.
cities to education and job career. Venture capitalist to startup founder to someone working at a Silicon Valley tech company.
Mhm.
And so the first one is Caesar. What is a challenge you're working to solve? So this could be, tech or business related. It could be big or
Yeah.
small. There's no right or wrong answers, but a challenge that you're working to solve.
Yeah. So currently, Meta is a global company, and
Mhm.
like anyone else, we've been extremely impacted and affected by COVID, right? So I've got a team of um, 6 FTEs and maybe 22 contingent workers, and my current issue is they're spread across the globe, right? Is it safe for someone in Ohio to come back to the office, or is it safe for someone in, say, Nebraska to go into the office, right? Without being offensive,
Yeah.
how do I solve for? And I work in a data center, which essentially people don't realize this, but data centers never closed. So someone was in there the entire time we've been home at COVID. The majority of us, they're not necessarily frontline workers because they're not solving, heart or health issues, but they're keeping our platforms running,
Yeah.
right? So part of my current challenge is who can go in and win, and at what pace are they able to go in? Is it one day a week? Is it 2 days a week? Is it 3 days a week? I've got to balance that out and figure out how I ensure that people's health is prioritized, as well as keeping the lights on for our platforms and our services.
Yeah, that's great. And I love the insight. So thank you.
Mhm.
Second one is what is a favorite read, listen, or watch? So this could be a book or a podcast or a show. Some answers are like work, tech, geek related, and
Yeah.
others are I got to disconnect at the end of the day. And this is my guilty pleasure. So, what's a book, podcast, or show for you?
I'm a huge sports nut.
Okay.
I don't have to disconnect though. That's what I love about my job. Like I don't. At the end of the day, I don't feel overwhelmed and beat down. Believe it or not, I'm often texting with colleagues about what's going to come up for the weekend or what we're doing. But to answer your question, there's a book called "The Road Less Travel" by M. Scott Peck, one of my favorite reads, and it really just talks about the connectivity between ourselves and a young version and an adult version, and how it really takes some time and some practice to develop and articulate and figure out what we love and what we're passionate about, how to move from young adult Caesar to mature Caesar, right? And so that's one of my favorite reads. And then I keep a book on my desk. It's around here somewhere. It's basically spiritual quotes and prayers by Marcus
Cool.
Aurelius, a Greek fan, and it's just good things to kind of have at the top of my brain. But I love so much relational things. That's kind of why I talk. Either some kind of self help book or how to build community and be impactful in those ways.
Great. As a follow on, so I guess like 2B, you mentioned
Yeah.
sports. So what's your sport of choice or sports of choice, and who's your team?
To watch, all-time favorite March Madness without a doubt, NCAA is the bee's knees. Love watching football. I'm not an Ohio State fan just yet. I'm still a Texas fan, but I relish in March Madness
Well,
brackets.
it's coming up.
It's coming. It's coming. I can't wait for it. It's just a fun season. It's
It is.
basketball at its purest. It's the fans are still just young, unimpressionable. It's just a fun time. I love it.
It
I love
is.
it. I
Yeah.
love it to death.
I mean, the whole tournament's great, but I don't know the first couple days, and when you're getting the Cinderellas and 16 beating one and 15 beating
Exactly.
two, and
Yeah.
yeah, you can't. It's one of those special things that it is literally madness. So it's a lot of
Yeah.
fun.
And college is a season where, for the most part, everyone is talented, but you have,
Mhm.
certain people that can rise to the occasion.
Yep.
And you mentioned those Cinderella teams. It's always like a standout,
Yeah.
one or two guys, and then also could be a collective team effort. So it's just such a fun time. Those buzzer
Yeah.
beaters, Chris. just,
Oh,
they blow my mind. They just blow
they're
my
awesome.
mind
Oh,
every
and
year.
it's, it's one game where
Yeah.
most other sports, it's like, I guess football, but,
Yeah.
baseball and professional it's best of 5, best of 7, and,
Yes.
which is great, right? But, like, there's great stories where teams come down from 3-0, or, whatever, but I mean, it's one, and it's, what, 25, 30 minutes, a half, and,
Man.
just it's
And you
nuts.
see it.
It's so
You
cool.
see the emotion on those
Yeah.
kids, everything from high, to extremely low, but it's just it's such a passionate sport. I thoroughly enjoy it. I
Yeah.
played basketball as a young
Okay.
kid until I got to high school and realized I wasn't as tall as I thought I was. Um, but I still played, and I took up golf later. But yeah, basketball
Okay.
by far my passion.
Yeah, March Madness is awesome, and again, it's coming up, so I'm
Yeah.
excited as well. All right, so question 3: what is a problem you'd solve or a business you'd start if you got $100 million seed check to tackle it, and it
Mm,
can be in anything. So you get that blank check to go. Hey, here's a problem you see. Go fix it. What are you going to try to tackle?
mm. Couple things. I'm gonna steal one that I saw last night on the news, but I didn't talk about it a lot. But I'm from Texas. My wife's from the Midwest, and it was one of the trips that I took with her family, where they took me skiing, and I got experience to snow. The next summer, I wanted to try snowboarding, so I did, and I just fell in love with it. Coming down the mountain, not necessarily fast, just having a good time. And friends would tease me, of course. Caesar, black people don't ski, and I'm like, sure they do. Black people do all kinds of things. But I think I'd start something that gave children exposure, not just
Mhm.
to skiing or snowboarding, but also technology, snowboarding, things that you and I hear as these one-off cliches that we know don't have a lot of merit, but some. But I'd give the opportunities for people, whether it was skiing in Colorado this summer or working in Silicon Valley in the fall, something like that that would bring kids together, kids, preteens, and give them the ability to have exposure to things they wouldn't
Yeah.
ordinarily have exposure to.
That's cool, and I actually think I saw that segment on TV. Was it like 10 TV or something? It was like the local
Yeah,
maybe, or
yeah,
maybe okay,
yeah.
yeah, I think I saw that
And I
one this
literally,
morning.
my kids were running wild, Chris, and I had to pause it, but I really wanted to hear it
Yeah,
because I love the snow. I love
yeah,
skiing. So I love snowboarding, and so when I hear those stories, I was so included. Of course, I'm nerdy, so as soon as they got finished, I looked it up online, and the group is called Coast, and it's specifically organized around minorities. And I thought that was just so amazing that
yeah,
someone would think about that and actually put feet to it and let it grow. I thought it
yeah,
was cool. I was blown
yeah,
away by
cool,
it.
yeah, great story. So 4th and final one, and I love this question because you are newer to town. You're newer to
Mhm.
Ohio, but what's your favorite place that you've discovered being in Ohio?
Ooh, um, there's a lot of there's a couple. I've gotta say that my current community, I live in an area called Evans Farm.
Okay,
Um, the concept is retail up front in about 300 houses. There are some in close proximity than others, some larger lots, some smaller lots, but it's by far my favorite place. Everyone makes it feel so community driven. I mean,
mhm,
we literally play, we hang out, we talk, I text. I got a guy's text string. I'm always yapping about doing stuff. And we've gotten groups together and gone down to watch. We did a monster truck thing at the arena
oh, cool.
where the Blue Jackets play.
Yep, nationwide, yep,
Thank you, nationwide. But just Ohio, I'm sorry, Columbus in its entirety has been beautiful. I haven't gotten way far down south. I hear that's a beautiful area. I can't think of what
yeah,
it's called. It's a park and something else,
like
but
Hawking Hills,
thank you, Hocking Hills.
yep,
One of the things I love about Columbus is it's rich with history and culture, right? So I live close to Alum Creek. I didn't know that was one of the stops on the Underground Railroad
hmm,
for Harriet Tubman. And just right around here in Lewis Center, there's streets called Africa and some other ones. And the
yeah.
historical context is these old historic homes where slaves would hide as they were coming to find the Underground Railroad. So just Columbus in general, I've just thoroughly enjoyed. I know I didn't really answer the question, but I got to say
No,
that
no,
the
yeah,
people here have been great, and Columbus, I love it, everything
yeah,
about it. I love the cold weather. I love the summer so far. I'm not hard to please, and I think people should really kind of take more time and enjoy where they are while
Yeah.
they're there, because you might be somewhere else in
Yeah,
a short time.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fantastic, and it's, I'm sure moving with all of this in the weird world is probably not the easiest thing in the world. I didn't have to go
Right.
through that, but
Right.
that's awesome to hear that you and the family sound like have had a great experience, and yeah, Texas does not have 4 seasons, so
No.
we're definitely experiencing the one right now.
And I sent video to my family back home. My sister came out to visit last year. It's just I love it here. I do. The
Yeah,
people. We got to get Tex-Mex, Chris. Maybe we can start
I
something. And
Well, and I
anything.
actually I wrote down in my notes like that my big takeaway idea from every is that we got to start like a Tex-Mex and tech event or something to get people like
Oh, I
back
like it.
together but enjoy some good food. So
Yeah.
my head has been spinning in this conversation.
I tell you what, the only thing I'm missing is food. Family will come and visit you, right?
Yeah,
I think, but there are some food things out of Texas that I just
I know,
I have hankerings for. We
I
have a
know.
favorite donut place. There's a juice land I think is just phenomenal. It's all those healthy
Yeah,
juices with vegetables and natural things. But if you and I can put our heads together and come up with some kind of Tex-Mex thing, I'm telling you, I'd do it
we,
today. Tell me where to be.
yeah. No, I'm
I'm
with you, but
brainstorm.
I'll defend, Ohio in that our, a barbecue fan, love
Yeah.
barbecue and love
Mhm,
Texas barbecue and Georgia and, Nashville, like love all that.
mhm. Yep.
It's gotten a lot better, the barbecue scene in the past, 5, 8 years, because there's a lot of these kind of, maybe they start as like a food truck or something, and then they
Yeah,
kind of open
yeah.
up a second location. So I'm hoping that Tex-Mex will maybe like, follow in that path of, because I'd love it. That again, Houston, love it, and Austin, of course, too.
If Tex-Mex were to make its way here, Chris, I don't know why I would leave. One of the things I also love about it is you're in Ohio, right? You have so much access to different places,
Yeah.
Chicago, the East Coast. It's just the lakes, Great Lakes, Lake
Yep.
Michigan. My wife took me to, I'm going to mess it up. It's in the furthest northern part of Illinois, Chicago. Oh, almost close to Canada. I forgot what it's called.
Like the Upper
Anyway,
Peninsula.
yeah, UP. But what's up there?
Yep.
There's an
Like
island, Mackinac
it
Island.
Mackinac is awesome, isn't it?
Chris had never been through Michigan. I'm sorry, it was not Illinois, but Michigan. Had never been through Michigan, let alone never been to Mackinac Island. It was the most wonderful time. We did it just last
Yeah.
year. We got a lake house. I'm
Oh,
dying to get back there. There's just so many cool things
yeah.
in the northern part of the U.S. that I would have never had
Yeah.
access to, out of Texas.
And, again, get up there and you don't really have the humidity and some of the heat, so it can be like beautiful summers. And it's also really nice for I haven't, I have relatives in Michigan, so we went up a
Okay.
lot when I was growing up. Um, but for like leaves and kind of the leaves changing, you kind of go up north in Michigan. We shouldn't probably talk too much about it because this is an Ohio show, but
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
you can
You're
drive
right.
to a lot of places from Ohio. It's
The
awesome.
premise was the actual. You're right. The jumping
The
off point that
accessibility.
Ohio provides. Thank you,
Yeah.
accessibility. But Ohio has my heart for sure. I love it
Yeah.
here.
That's awesome. Well, Caesar, thank you. This has been a true pleasure, and have loved getting to meet you and talk with you. And thanks for sharing your story. Love the Meta team. You have a ton of great colleagues that I always love interacting with, and
Mhm.
so glad I got to meet another one. But this has been fantastic. And how can people like find you? Are you on LinkedIn? Do you have Twitter? Like, how can if you want to connect with someone, how can they do that?
Yeah. Thank you for saying that, Chris. I'm always open to new relationships. I'm on Instagram as CROCKICE. I know it sounds funny. It's C Rock Ice. I'm also on Twitter at, I think it's Mr. Suitness,
Okay.
SUITNESS. And of course, you can find me on Meta as Caesar Campbell. But yeah, reach out, connect. I love hearing places I should visit in Ohio, or food I should try.
Yep.
I found a few barbecue places that I absolutely love. I actually had some ribs yesterday from this place called Ray
Oh,
Ray's
nice.
Hog Pit, which is really
It's
good.
great. It's very
Um,
good.
and yeah, Chris, it's been a pleasure. I enjoy getting to know new people as well. I enjoy, utilizing and leveraging platforms like this to share my story. So phenomenal. Hope it helps someone. If I can shed any more light, feel free to reach out to me in any of those social media platforms.
Great. Well, Caesar, again, thank you so much. Thanks to our listeners and watchers for tuning in and hearing another story. A ton of exciting stuff happening in Ohio in tech, and it's cool to be a part of it. It's an exciting time for Ohio. More people are coming to the state, and it's really cool. There's a real momentum that's exciting. It's fun, and who knows what next week is going to bring. It seems like there's always new momentum, new announcements, new people
Hmm.
coming into the state, which is really cool. But Caesar, again, thank you so much. This has
Yes,
been a
sir.
ton of fun, and we really appreciate your time.
Chris, have a great weekend. Cheers, buddy.